Good afternoon. My name is Theo from Krogt. I'm with the University of Twente in the Netherlands, but I'm here in this conference more in my capacity as Secretary of the European Association for Public Administration Accreditation, EAPA, which have their meetings along this conference of PNPA and EPA. And I'm chairing this meeting this afternoon, which is easy because I have three distinguished speakers who will do the job for me, just keeping them to their time and asking people who have questions later on. I will introduce them very shortly and they will introduce themselves more if they want. First, at my left, at your right, is Kerstin Sahlin from the University of Uppsala. Here to my right and to your left is Marlies Leegwater of the Dutch Ministry of Education and Jörg Hajnal, I tried to pronounce it right, from the Hungarian Institute of Public Administration. The order of this afternoon is that these speakers will introduce themselves and give their presentation, short presentation, 15, 20, 25 minutes, whatever they need. After each presentation, there will be short questions for clarification, not for discussion, but for clarification. And then I'll ask the floor if they have questions for one of the speakers, or perhaps one of the members of the panel have questions to each other. And then the floor is open for discussion. And the last part, that will be just before 4:30, I will ask the chairs of the working groups to introduce shortly their working group for this afternoon, so you will know where to choose from. Okay, said that, I'll ask Ms. Sahlin to start her presentation, which is titled The Emergence of a European Regulatory Field of Management Education, Standardizing through Accreditation, Ranking and Guidelines. And I know she will especially talk about the e-quiz system for business management.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. I'm a professor in public management in Uppsala, but my chair is in the Department of Business Studies, so I'm sort of part of your discipline, but sort of not. I have been asked to tell a little about the development of an accreditation system for management education in Europe. We have studied how and why this system of accreditation, called EQUIS, the European Quality Improvement System, why it was formed and how it interacts with other forms of what we call soft regulations. And also partly how it affects, if we can say that yet, how it affects the education in the schools. The soft regulations, when I say that, I mean other accreditation systems, but also media rankings, which we have to take into the picture when talking about accreditation of management education. And of course, evaluation procedures, etc. These studies should be seen in the context of two research interests of mine. First, the re-regulation of Europe, with the emergence of interlinked soft regulations, transnational regulations, that are formed in constellations between state and non-state organizations. And also, I'm also interested in the development and expansion of management knowledge throughout the world. So, I'm not an expert in the sense that I've been part of this system, but we have studied it from the outside, so to speak. Well, there is definitely an expansion of regulatory activities of European management education. We see an expanded system and overlapping systems of accreditation, not only this EQUIS, but also the AACSP, the American accreditation system, is very active now on the European scene. we have lots of rankings where, especially the Financial Times, rank business schools, management programs, etc. We have state evaluation, of course, quality improvement systems that are installed from within the state. The EQUI system and the AACSB system is mainly a system that accredits institutions, business schools, and their programs. But there are also accreditation systems of specific programs, and the most well-known is called AMBA. It's the accreditation for MBA programs. It's a British system. And then we have national systems. So what we say with these are very often interacting with each other. And I think that is important, that they spur each other and they interact with each other. So one form of regulation spurs the establishment of another regulation. And that is why we call this an emergent regulatory field of management education. And this is a working paper, actually, that I've written with two of my doctoral students. And if you are interested, I guess you can get a copy or you can get it from our website. The real experts on this are my doctoral students, of course. They have done the studies. They couldn't be here because they are observing now a global meeting in Bangkok for all accrediting organizations of management education throughout the world. It's sort of also a side of what is happening this week. So now to a more concrete empirical data on this development. Well, I took the first few paragraphs from the website of the EQUIS. And as you see, it now calls itself an international system. It does not only accredit schools in Europe, but also in Asia, etc., in Africa, and so on. It collaborates very closely with AACSB, the American accreditation system, that also calls themselves an international accreditation system. They were formed in 1997 by the EFMD, the European Foundation for Management Development. As I can understand from here, the members are the ones who are in control of the system. But they also emphasize very much that they should have contacts with the business world. So for example, when they do the assessment in connection with the accreditation procedure, there are 3 academics and 1 representative of the business world in the peer review group. Of course, it is emphasized that it's quality assurance and it's, again, the institutions that are being accredited. Today, I will very quickly show you the whole group of schools that have been accredited so far. These are in the latest news that you find on their webpage, is that 54 schools have so far been accredited by this system. And as you can see, there are many European schools. I think France dominates. They were the ones who were most active originally, but there are also schools, as you can see, from Canada, from Australia, etc. Quite a few Danish schools, I think. And here is the whole group of schools. So it's quite a diverse mix of schools, and business schools, education centers, university departments, etc., etc. Now, how and why was this formed then? Well, the short answer is quality assurance and Europe. The idea was that we needed a system to ensure the quality of management education. Management education programs had expanded tremendously throughout Europe during the last few decades, especially the MBA programs that were referred to previously. There are approximately about 900 MBA programs on offer around Europe today. And they are very diverse. Anyone can say that they have an MBA program. and they needed a system to ensure what is an MBA program and to distinguish the serious from the less serious ones. There had been very many national accreditation systems that had been started with this aim in mind. But the main argument was that we need a European system. These national systems are not enough. So we need to put a European dimension to this. Originally, the idea was to have an umbrella, a coordination of the national systems. But it soon showed to be too complicated to try and coordinate these different systems. Some were accreditation programs of specific programs, some were accreditations of institutions. So they started, the EFMD started to launch their own accreditation program by trying to learn from all the various programs that were around, but also trying to learn from quality assurance programs that were had been started in the business world. This was a rather political process, and it ended up by this AMBA that I told you, the MBA accreditation body. They left this collaborative effort because they thought it would threaten their brand to take part in this. Now, the direct, and what they did was to say that we need to save the diversity in Europe, all these familiar aims, so they launched a mission-linked program. The direct driving force was that the AACSB, the American accreditation system that has been in operation since 1916, they had plans to go international, as they said. That is, they had plans to start accrediting European business schools. And this was really what drove and made it urgent for this European body to start launching their own accreditation program. But I think it's also fair to say that another aspect of this was really an organizational motive. EFMD was an organization with an aim to be a platform for management development in Europe. And they were losing members, their finances were not that good, and they needed some activities to attract the attention and to survive. So it's really a motive from the regulator's side, so to speak. And they were really successful, as you have seen. They have really accredited lots of programs and institutes, and it's really a good business for them. They are making a lot of money on this too. So what happened was that when they started this, one important aspect was, of course, how to get attention to this program and how to make this trustworthy. So what they asked was to ask the 19 leading business schools in Europe to be accredited first, to really do this. They didn't have to pay, but they said that they would be accredited. And one of the deans of one of the leading business schools in Europe says, we actually paid, together with a few others, an initial sum of money to help EFMD develop their approach, because, again, we feel it is important that the European playing field is somehow disciplined, and you don't have all these fly-by-night schools, fragmentation. So in that sense, it is very important for us. But for us, as a school per se, I have to say that I don't think we get major insights out of the accreditation process. Nobody asks us whether we are accredited or not. It is our reputation which is strong and drives it for us. So this sort of illustrates how different purposes this accreditation has for different schools. I think that he's not really right for saying that nobody pays attention, because what happens is that as this accreditation system has grown for the very leading schools, it's not anymore a sign of being an elite school to be accredited by the EFMD. There are too many schools that have been accredited. So what is important for them now is to be ranked. And the rankings, here is the Financial Times ranking. You can't read it, but it shows how these detailed rankings that are international top business schools. And it is important for schools to be on these ranking lists. And interestingly enough, Financial Times has a policy only to write about schools that are being accredited, that have been accredited. And that is also why, that's also the only schools that they put into their ranking systems. So this idea of distinguishing an elite by accrediting has sort of, it's not anymore valid. So what is the discussion now is how should we keep it as an elite accreditation at the same time as they want to include as many schools as possible. They have really changed their criteria along the way in order to include more schools. For example, originally it was thought of as an accreditation program for independent business schools. Now my own department of business studies in Uppsala, which is part of the university, is going through this accreditation procedure. So they have changed their criteria to include more schools, but they lose this elite idea by this. And I think that has become more of a problem for the ecosystem. Just recently they turned down 2 schools in Sweden that have not become accredited. And the idea is that we can't have too many schools in each country. What they do is then they offer specific programs for those who have turned down, so they can train and then try again and become accredited again. So the rankings are based on accreditation, but the schools don't have control of the ranking criteria. So what has happened is that EFMD and others have now started to formulate guidelines and directives for schools for how to report rankings. And they try to formulate regulations for the rankers. So it's really, one regulation or assessment leading to another one. And this is why we talk about this as a regulatory field. It is really a field also where they go from assessments to standards and guidelines. On the requests of schools who were thinking of applying to become accredited, they wanted to know specific guidelines. What are you really measuring? So EFMD and EQUIS have launched standards and guidelines for how a good MBA would look like. And I've already talked about this. Regulations lead to more regulations. What has happened also is that, of course, every accreditor must have the best schools in their system, otherwise they are not legitimate. So AACSB now have become international. They also accredit European schools. Some European schools are triple, 4 accredited by 3 or 4 accrediting bodies. And of course, one can ask what happens with this European dimension when the schools are accredited by so many. And it's clear that the accreditation criteria are really mapped on the most prestigious schools. So finally, what are the consequences then for schools? I think that we don't know. It's too early to see the long-term consequences of this. It's too early to see how it affects startup, the possibilities for state to maintain control, for academic quality, etc. What we can do is to find some anecdotal results so far. I think it's clear that it has enhanced the imitation. It's a way of homogenizing but also stratification of the European field. What happens with the European identity, we don't know. Resources, it costs a lot of money for schools, and with all the cut-downs in most parts of Europe, we don't know if they will apply again or if it will fade away. What we know is that especially the rankings have very direct consequences for some schools. For example, the rankings included research in their ranking criteria, and research measured in terms of number of publications in well-known journals, and you know which journals are the well-known. These are the American journals, and these are international rankings, and that has certainly affected the policies. They also have included the number of female professors, and it's amazing how many female professors have recently been hired by the well-known business schools. It's also the case that in order to become ranked by Financial Times, you have to have a full-time MBA. That is a 2-year program that is for people who have at least 3 years of working experience coming back to the university. Both the Stockholm School of Economics and the Copenhagen Business School are now starting these kinds of programs. They have done no market investigations whatsoever. They are starting it because they want to be included in the rankings. So it is really a form of soft regulation that has great impact, but very indirect impact. So we really don't know what will happen. Okay, thank you.